In the previous section of Chapter 9, we talked about the beginning of protein synthesis, was just known as transcription. And so if you recall, transcription takes the DNA, which carries the instructions on how to build the protein and which protein to make. It takes DNA and uses it to make RNA. Remember, RNA is important in this process because it's small enough it can leave the nucleus and carry those instructions out to the ribosome. Now, we just mentioned a specific type of RNA that does that. It's known as messenger RNA, or mRNA. And so one really important thing that you need to know about this mRNA is it's known as your genetic code. This genetic code is read 3 bases at a time. We call it a codon. So if you take that messenger RNA that was just made and you divide it into groups of 3 bases, each group of 3 is known as a codon. And each codon represents an amino acid. So it's kind of like we use codes for things. You know, I don't know if y'all have ever written in code before. I remember when I was in elementary school, we had, my friends and I would write letters to each other. Sometimes we would use symbols for words so that if somebody grabbed our note, they wouldn't be able to understand exactly what we were saying. And so just as a symbol stood for a word, here the codon stands for an amino acid. Now, there are 64 different codons because there's 64 different combinations of bases that you can make. Of those 64 codons, 61 of them actually stand for amino acids. The other ones stand for starting and stopping. So AUG is known as the start codon, and it's called the start codon because this is where protein synthesis begins. Easy way to remember it, you think about the school year starting in August. Abbreviation for August is AUG. There are 3 other codons that are known as stop codons, UGA, UAA, and UAG. They're called stop codons because this is where we end protein synthesis. So AUG begins it, and then the stop codons is where it's going to end. So if you look at this image out of your textbook on page 183, you'll see the different codons that are found. So for example, if you look over here, UUU, so this is a codon, it's a group of 3 bases, and we said it stands for an amino acid. UU stands for phenylalanine. Or if you come down here, let's look at this one, GUC. GUC stands for the amino acid valine. So what your cells know is that every codon is going to stand for an amino acid. And so when it reads that codon, it knows what amino acid it needs. Now, why is order important here? Well, we've already said the order at which amino acids are put together in determines the structure, the shape of a protein, and the shape of a protein determines its function. Now, there are 3 properties that you need to know about this genetic code. First off, the genetic code is redundant. We said there's 64 codons, but if you remember from Unit 1, there's only 20 amino acids. So since there's only 20 amino acids that can be made, and there's 64 codons that can stand for them, some of them are going to have to double up. For example, CCU, CCC, CCA, and CCG all code for the same amino acid. If you look at the image, you'll see that. So all of these stand for proline. Just like these 2 stand for phenylalanine, or these 4 stand for serine. And again, the reason they have to be redundant is just because there are so many codons, but only 20 amino acids. The second property is that the genetic code is universal. All living things, all organisms have a genetic code, and this genetic code produces proteins. The only difference is that our genetic codes are not exactly the same. So we put things in different order to build different proteins, and that's what makes us all a little bit different. But the importance of the fact that it's universal is that because we all have the same genes that build the same proteins, we can take genes from one organism and put them in another and build proteins that we need. That's where that whole idea of genetically modified organisms come from, is we can take genes from a cow, we can put them in place of genes for a bacterial cell, and we can develop growth hormone for cows. The third property is that the genetic code shows no ambiguity, meaning a given codon can never call for more than one amino acid. UUU always stands for phenylalanine. It cannot stand for anything else. So this genetic code is very, very important. You'll want to spend some time looking through this, making sure you get a good idea of what the codons represent.